how do we increase your billings without working more? And you've only got a few options here, right? You can get more top of funnel, so get more jobs on, or you can convert a higher percentage of the jobs you've already got and plug some of the leaks in your bucket, or you can increase the average value of each placement. Those are three avenues that you have to increase your billings. Now, which of those is in my view, the best one to start with? It's let's increase the fill rate, because it doesn't require any more work. That's the thing. You're not working longer hours, but the number one best way to achieve that is to get more of your clients on an engaged or retained basis. Because when you're working that way, there's no guarantees in recruitment, right? There's always things that can go wrong, but it's the most likely way to make sure that you get paid for your work. You said something that I love, which is that you educated your clients on the difference between contingency, engaged, and retained. And you used a phrase I really like, which is that essentially they're buying your priority time. And that's a phrase I've used myself. I think clients don't understand that until you explain it to them.
Correct.
I'm wondering if you could just give a little more detail around because before you try and explain this to a client, you need to be clear in your own mind, right? Of what is the difference. So in your view, if you take these three service offerings, you've got the contingency, you've got engage, which means they're paying you a deposit and then the balance, and then a full retained search, which is typically a third, although it could be some other percentage. You've already highlighted one key distinction, which is that if the client is retaining you, they get prioritized, right? You're putting whatever time and resources are required into that in order to make sure that you deliver. What are some of the other key distinctions?
We actually made up a spreadsheet for them. It was a great little PDF that had 3 columns, and it had, like 12 different things on the side, and it compared what you got for each one in each of those things.
Idea.
So it was easy to explain, and I'll highlight some of them. And some were unique to us. One of the things that we did, we prepared for only our retained searches. We prepared a position prospectus. And it was something that our marketing department put together with my help and the client's help. And it was, they could either have it in hard copy or electronically, whichever, or both. And it was probably about a 25 or 30 page document that covered an introductory letter from me about why this was an exciting search, the history of the company, a good amount of information about the position itself, bios of the principals of everybody in the company that were involved in the search, an org chart of where the positions fell in the company, a good bit of background technical information that my people would want to know about what that specific plant had to offer, and then about 8 or 10 pages at the end about geographic location, because for us, 98% of our placements involved relocation, potentially from one side of the country to another. And they don't put refineries in beautiful locations that everybody wants to live. So most of the time you have to explain what the upside is of any location, or the silk purse to the sow's ear, if you will. And so there was a big section on geography and what the area was like, what the attractions were like, what the family opportunities were, what the schooling was like, what the taxation was like, what the housing was like. Anyway, by the time we got finished, this was like a 28-page thing. And it was such a wow factor for our clients. We worked with many companies that didn't have big, glossy Fortune 100 corporate brochures, and we became their corporate brochure.
Right.
And the traction that we got, I mean, all you had to do was send a new client a sample of an opportunity position prospectus that we put together for another client. And they were like, wow, we want one of those. And I said, great, then you have to be retained. We do this free of charge. for all of our retained searches. And of course, there's economies of scale, because at that point, if you do one retained search for a client at a specific location, it's easy for them to then give you 3 searches at the
Right.
same location and still do them retained, because then it's easy to replicate that brochure for that same location. And they're all over that. So that was a really big thing for us. That was a big sell factor. For our engaged searches, we told them that we would, under certain circumstances, prepare a brochure for them, but they had to pay for it.
Good
And it
idea.
was not available on a contingency search. So
Yeah.
that was one of the big differentiators. Another big differentiator for us was our guarantee period. We gave a 1-year replacement guarantee on all of our retained searches, 6 months on engaged, and 90 days on contingency.
Great.
So those were just a couple of the big examples of some real
Absolutely.
significant differences among the 3 searches.